Hello, so in my last video for Guild Wars I just did a fire magic tier list. So in this video I'd like to go over some of the worst fire magic skills or some that are just like kind of lackluster and some easy ways to improve them. One thing to keep in mind is if any elementalist skill is buffed, it's going to greatly increase the difficulty of any area where that skill is present. So, for example, if you buff Liquid Flame, there are enemies in like I don't know if enemies in DOA run Liquid Flame, but they definitely run like Searing Flames and like Meteor Shower and shit like that. But if you buff some of these skills, it will have like unforeseen consequences. Honestly, I think if they do buff a lot of Ellie skills, they should just go ahead and slap like a 20% damage output reduction on enemy hard mode Ellies, because there's some Ellies that can hit for like 400 damage for some reason, and it like forces everyone to run Mesmers. It forces everyone to run like super insane mitigation. Like you have to run Soul Twisting in most situations. You have to run prod or some kind of prod or like paragons or like damage mitigation. Like save yourselves. Like the metagame is kind of stale in that you have to run certain things in order just to deal with like enemy Ellies in hard mode specifically. Like they really seem to just like an enemy melee can deal good damage too. But anyways, let's jump into some skills that could be buffed or reworked. Let's start with burning speed. So for burning speed, I would change this just to remove the burn from you. Like there's no reason for it. I'm fine with everything else about it. Maybe make it so it caps out at 35%, but it hits it at like 12 fire magic. Maybe it hits like 35% faster speed. And then you remove the suffer from burning, and it inflicts burn when it ends, and put it on like a 5-second cooldown. Maybe make it cost 5 energy. Alternatively, you could make it like a dash where it has like an 8-second cooldown. You move 50% faster no matter what, and then its duration is tied to fire magic and the burn. So it could have like increased duration, and then when it ends, it burns on adjacent. But the fact that it puts burn on you is just like stupid. I mean, it's just a weird skill. I don't really run this, but I guess like maybe make it 5 energy, 8-second cooldown. It can go from it lasts for 3 up to like 6 seconds, and you move 50% faster, and that's static, and then like it inflicts burn when it ends. And make it maybe even make it a stance or something. I don't know, just to like give it some use case. Like other professions could run it, kind of like a dash. Maybe it has like a 10 or 15-second cooldown if it inflicts burn and all this shit. But yeah, that's one idea. Elemental Flame, have this deal damage as well. Leave it how it is, but make it deal like 30 fire damage to every affected foe. That would really bump this up. That would make running like a water fire build somewhat viable. In its current form, degen isn't really the best for killing things and dealing damage in PvE. So maybe make it just deal like straight up, like no enemies really run this. So you could buff this and it wouldn't really like change much. So you could definitely make this do like 30 or 50 damage every time you apply a hex. That would greatly increase its viability and make water magic good as well. Glyph of Ventilation, make it so that every single affected foe takes the burn. So instead of your next 4 spells that target a foe, make it state your next 4 spells inflict burn on every foe that they affect. So, for example, this would make like Flare or Liquid Flame or Fireball. All the affected foes take burn. That would just make this viable. In its current form, it's just not good in PvE. Immolate, increase its energy cost to 15 and make it hit adjacent. Now it's viable. Lava Arrows, increase its damage just a little bit and make it also hit 4 other foes instead of 2. Now it's good. Liquid Flame, I would change this. I would leave all of its stats the same. I would change it so it hits 70 damage to nearby, 70 fire damage, and then it deals an extra like 35 to nearby if they're attacking. So what this does is it takes away some of the conditional damage. So even if the foe is knocked down or not attacking or whatever, it does at least 70 damage nearby, and it'll do the exact same amount of damage. It's just that now it always hits nearby. and the condition just increases its damage a little bit to what it already would do, but it just makes it more consistent. That would be fine. Mark of Rodger, this one I feel like could be made to be very interesting. I would make this deal like 10, maybe like 15 fire damage a second on top of like what else it already does. And I'm trying to think what else would be good with this. I had an idea that was like not bad, but it needs to bring more to the table. For 15 energy, just applying burn when a target takes fire damage isn't really that strong, because if an enemy removes it, it just doesn't do anything, and like you're assuming that you're going to be casting like a ton of spells and getting a lot of burn in, but like the pace of hard mode is so fast that enemies need to die in like 20 seconds or less, or you're probably going to wipe or get overwhelmed. So this just needs to deal some damage. I mean, it would be triggering itself, I guess. Maybe it deals like... Oh, here, okay, so here's what the idea was. So it does exactly what it does now, but it also reduces target foe's armor in regards to fire damage, and it can reduce it below 60. But it would only reduce it by like 15 or something. So it would give you kind of like armor penetration. And then maybe also have it deal like 3 ... 5 armor ignoring damage per second, so it doesn't trigger itself, and it does like a little bit extra. This would become actually useful because it would scale your damage, it would deal armor ignoring damage, but a small amount, and then it also gives you access to burn. Not that many spells hit nearby, so it's something to consider. Mind Blast, this needs significantly buffed. I would make it deal 100 fire damage, hit nearby. Just change it to you gain 3 energy per foe hit. Done. Increase its cooldown now, obviously, to like 5 or 10. Pick one. Alright, what else? Let's see. Phoenix definitely needs buffed. Searing Flames needs a minor rework. Smoldering Embers. It's nice heat. I guess you can leave alone. It's fine. Phoenix, increase the damage to like 80 at least. Like 57 fire damage on nearby is just terrible. For how long it takes to cast this spell, it's just not the best. So at least 80 fire damage, so it like can kind of deal some damage. It hits nearby, which is decent. Maybe make it no longer a projectile. Maybe just have a Phoenix rise at their location, so they just take 80. Change it so it hits for 80 fire damage, hits nearby, no longer projectile, heals for 80 if you're overcast, and also make it so that if you're overcast, it hits area. That would make it really good. Searing Flames. This skill sucks. Like it's like I said, it's B tier in the video, but honestly, it feels much worse than that because like when you're using this, it just feels like it doesn't do anything. Like if I just throw it on Bed of Coals and then hit an enemy group with Meteor, they take like 250 damage, are knocked down, and get 7-second burn. Bed of Coals and Meteor costs 15 energy. Like just keep that in mind. So when you cast this twice to deal 90 fire damage and then your 7 seconds of burn, you're looking at 2 seconds for just casting and 1.5 seconds for after cast, for a total of 3.5 seconds of casting. With Meteor and Bed of Coals, you're also getting a knockdown and an extra 150 damage. So that's just way better. And the casting time is like an extra 1 second, but it's just much stronger. This skill needs like a significant buff, but the problem is if you buff this, it's going to buff a lot of Nightfall enemies, it's going to buff a lot of DOA enemies, so like the buffs you would have to make like to give this would have to be like almost not high impact. So I would make it so that it costs 10 energy, first of all. That's one thing, that's one way you can buff it where it won't really affect hard mode enemies. I would increase its damage just a little bit and increase its burn. I would increase its burn to 10 seconds and increase its damage to like 120 and then put it at a 10 energy cost. I'd like the casting time to be like 3/4 of a second. But unfortunately, you're just going to buff enemies. So like I think that's what you'd have to do with it. So 10 energy, 120 damage, and then 10-second burn. It's because you have to cast it twice in order to get the damage, right? And the burn, like at 7 seconds, is okay, but That's what I would do to it. And then, of course, Smoldering Embers. Just make it hit adjacent on the cast and make the overcast hit adjacent and increase the cost to 15. And this would be really good because it would deal like 120 damage over time, which is pretty strong, to adjacent. And it's a hex spell. It's debatable if you even need to increase the energy cost, but it definitely needs to hit it adjacent or something. So yeah, those are the changes that I'd make to some of these like underwhelming fire magic skills. Also, I'd make Glowing Gaze a little bit better. Just make it hit adjacent, but only proc off of the target. So it just deals some damage. It's kind of it's kind of pitiful. But yeah, that's my fire magic suggestions, I guess. I don't think this will ever change though. I don't think the devs will even see this, but it doesn't hurt to try.